Well, she's one of the biggest faces in corporate India, somebody who's broken all barriers and has risen to the very top of her profession. Joining us now, the CEO and MD of ICICI, Chanda Kochchar. Thank you, ma'am, very much for being with us today. It's just in the last couple of years that the issue of safety for women in the workplace, and it's not just physical safety, but it's also safety from people who may use wrong language, whose discourse may be wrong, whose the signs may be wrong and incorrect. Is there a lack of sensitivity in corporate India to this?
Well, I would say that there is a lack of sensitivity, but I think it is very important for every corporate to make sure they create an environment where harassment is not tolerated at all. And not just that, I think it's important for the women employees to know that the corporate is focusing on creating an environment where harassment will not be tolerated. So, for example, at ICICI, we've had a very robust sexual harassment policy. I think all the women employees know that if there is any issue, they have the ability to escalate it, that each issue will be looked at in full detail, and that there is a zero tolerance for any of those events or incidents. So, it's important to create that environment. It's important to give the comfort to the women that this environment exists and that they have a way out if ever such incident takes place. That's one. The second is, over and above that, the issue of physical safety. Again, we have, in ICICI made sure that if women go for sales calls much later in the evening, then there's a protocol that they need to follow, that their offices need to be kept informed, and how they can contact anyone if there is an issue. Similarly, if women have to sit late and work, we generally have a system where they would be dropped or accompanied by a male colleague and so on. So I think these are some of the minor details, minor points, but I think they're very important.
Why don't we speak a little bit about empowerment of Indian women in the Indian workplace? Many years back, and perhaps not too in the distant past, for women to actually rise to break through barriers would have been very, very difficult. You're an example of somebody who's risen to the very top of your profession. Across corporate India, does this still remain a big challenge? It's a male-dominated workplace at the very highest levels. For women to actually make it to the top is extremely difficult.
I think the real empowerment for women comes from only one effort from the side of the corporates and one effort from the side of the women themselves. That is, the corporates have to make sure they create a gender-neutral environment, which means it has to be a merit-based environment. They basically give responsibilities, give jobs to people on the basis of their capabilities, irrespective of the fact whether they are a male or a female. And similarly, I think it's for the female employees to say that when we are at a workplace, we expect just a level playing field. We don't expect any special benefits. I mean, the jobs that involve long hours of working, so be it. The jobs that involve amount of travel, so be it. But that whether it's a male or a female, he or she has to give his or her fullest to the job. So I think as we start making our work environments gender neutral and merit based, and as women realize that they work in the workplace in a level playing field and really perform in a level playing field, that is when you will see more and more women moving up. Talking of whether there's a change or not on the corporate sector, well, I would say I've seen the corporate sector over the last almost 30 years. I think clearly there is a change here. There was at one point in time a situation where corporates would even hesitate to employ women because they had inhibitions about whether women would actually work with full dedication and focus. I think from there is a change where all corporates are going ahead and in fact wanting to get more and more gender diversity in their workforce. Right. So I think to that extent there's a huge difference. But we will, I mean, this is an evolution, this is a journey. It's only over a period that you'll see more and more women move up from the working level to the middle management to the senior management and so on.
One final question to you. The role of women in the workplace is all very well, but what about the role of women as mothers, mothers who are still professionals? Is there again a lack of sensitivity that you see out there in corporate India about having a requirement for women to fulfill their professional requirements, whereas the role of women as mothers often tends to be discounted?
No, I think the role of women as mothers, as wife, as daughter-in-law is equally important, and I don't think that is a role that either the woman can afford to ignore or the society or the corporates can allow that role to be ignored. It is important for us to make sure that working women play both the roles of a working woman and the role of being the mother, the wife, the daughter-in-law. Well, I think the corporates can play some role here in trying to be sensitive to the needs, the special needs of women at particular times, especially when, you know, they are on their family way, when they are having their first child, the second child. But more importantly, it's also for the woman to take the responsibility of performing this role very well. I mean, it requires hard work, it requires prioritization, it requires focus, it requires time management, it requires all that. So it's not a cakewalk, but I think with focus, with dedication, it's possible to play both the roles.
Well, one related question to that, the government of India has some of the most progressive standards when it comes to things like maternity leave or leave for mothers, even when they want to perhaps be with their children as they take exams. And this is a leave that can be taken over a period of several months, right till the time the child is about 18 years of age. Corporate India is much more rigorous in a sense. They don't have such flexibility. Should corporate India actually evolve itself? Should we adopt standards like what, say, exist in Scandinavia or in Australia, other parts of the world?
I think for corporates India, rather than just going by rules, I would say that you know, it is very important for corporate India to be sensitive to human requirement. And here I would say that we have to be sensitive to requirements of both men and women. I mean, again, the policy that we have followed in ICICI is that sometimes it's women who need a transfer because they have to, you know, adjust their work life with their family life. But many a times it's the men who need a transfer because of their family reasons. I think we are equally open to kind of trying and accommodate as many such requests as possible. There are many times that men have the need to actually spend time with their children during exams as much as women have. So it is, what is more important is really to be sensitive to human needs, to be sensitive to what the requirements of either a mother or a father could be, and try and accommodate those to the most extent as possible.
And is that a philosophy that you actually share with women who choose to work from home during a certain part of their career? Because there's a raging debate out there now on whether people need to actually be in work to show that they're actually working.
No, I think again there is no hard and fast rule here. You know, while every corporate needs to be very, very flexible and be as accommodative as possible, but at the same time we have to recognize that on the other extreme, there are some jobs that just cannot be done from home. I mean, if we have to run 3,000 branches, then I think in the branches the employees have to be present if they have to serve the customer. Whereas there is a lot of analytics that some of it can be done you know, in the middle of the night or sitting at home and so on. So I think you cannot draw up a very hard and fast rule here. You have to basically create a sensitivity in the organization to say that we will accommodate and be as sensitive as possible and then implement that with the right spirit.
All right, Ms. Chanda Kochchar, thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you so much indeed. Chanda Kochchar, the MD and CEO of ICICI Bank, joining us there on Women's Day on the need for empowerment and sensitivity. I think that's the message that she wants to send out there. Thank you very much indeed.